Okay. So the three types of loops. The one we saw yesterday or Monday was the for loop, and one of the issues you guys kind of noticed in the for loop is that you have to specify the upper limit. So if you know how many rows you have, you put that counter, because when you say for I or any other variable, is basically you need to specify the range. And you need, if you don't know the range, you need to guess what could be the maximum, and you need to put a logic to check if that valid, that a condition is still valid, then you can exit if the row is empty. The other way to do it is to use the do while. So let me open the Excel sheet we worked on last time. Worked on the macros for loop. Actually, let me try this one too. So this file is already on Blackboard if you want to open it and work with me. Okay, we'll do this later. So this is what we worked on last time, right? So we didn't know what was the maximum number of rows. So we said, okay, let's say up to 30. And every time we had to check if the row still has value, we'll continue. Otherwise, we'll use exit 4 to exit the loop. So we'll do the same thing, but we're going to use another logic. So I'm going to copy paste this sub, going to change the name, call it copy. Yes, it is open. Yes, I already have also a few people on it. Okay, so let's go to, let's just do a quick review. So as I mentioned, the for loop, basically, so the syntax is you need to specify the range of the loop, the counter or the index, do something for that loop, and then the next one. By the way, you can specify this step, which is not really going to cover or use, but it's not always 1. By default is 1 unless you specify something else. So you can say for d equals 0 to 10, but the step of 0.1. So to go from 0 to 0.1 to 0.2 until it hit 10. You can specify this step, just FYI. And also you can do a countdown. Doesn't have to be from smaller number to higher, could be the opposite. You can do 10 to 1, depends how you're going to use I. I'm not going to include this in the homework, neither this step, but so you know there's more options to that. For each loop, I'm not going to cover. For exit 4 statement, as I mentioned, you use exit 4 at any condition. It will break the for loop. The one I want to talk about now is the do while loop. So the syntax is use do while a condition, and then you close it with a loop. And that condition supposedly at some point to change to go from true to false, and at that point it will exit the loop. So let me write it on the board. So the syntax is do while, that's all the keywords, condition, and then same thing, you have the code you're gonna loop through, and then the closing keyword is loop. This is the structure. Now, in our situation, let's rethink what we did, how we're gonna do it here. So within the loop, we need something to check if the current value, the current row still has value or not. So what we did last time, we checked if the value is empty. Right? So the condition here, we can check while what? Actually, let's do it directly on here. Do while. So if we are at, now I need to specify I. Remember, I is not, oops, okay. Dim I as integer. Do while. And I need I to specify what? I, the initial value of I is 2, correct? Range I dot value. And I close it with loop, correct? Is this a correct condition? It's empty. So if A2 is empty, this will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So this condition is not logically correct. What should I change here? So let's take step by step. I declare the variable I as integer. This will help me to be the index of the where I'm reading, right? The source column. I start with cell number 2. And then as I goes from 2 to 3 to 4 and check if that value is greater than 500K to copy it, every time I need to check if that cell has value to check, otherwise it has to stop. Otherwise, if I don't do that, the while loop will keep running continuously indefinitely until the end of the column, which we don't want to do that. So what's the logic to check? If I read in it manually, if the list is in front of me, and I look at cell number 2, at A2, what do I need to check? If it's empty or not. So the logic for me to check or to read from it, there should be a value there. If there is a value, then I continue. If there is no value, I stop. Is empty gives me true if there is no value in it. So the condition here is while not is empty, try to copy if the value is true. So this is where I don't need this. Let me clean this up. I need this here. So let me put here and go over it. I'm still missing one piece, but let's take it step by step. So I initialize I to 2. So this is, I start with A2 before I get into the loop. So the do while will check if A2 is not empty. So let's proceed to this block, correct? And then I'll check if A2 initial value is greater than 500,000, then I will copy. Correct? And what should I do before I move on to the next one? Notice in the for loop, I don't need to increase I because it does it automatically. The do while does not. I need to manually add 1 to I. So started with 2. Next time I have to check with A3, then A4. So I started with 2. Now before I finish the first pass, I need to specify I equal I plus 1. So the next time it finishes the first pass and go against the second one it checks will be A3. Otherwise, it will keep checking A2 and it will not exit. So this case, this will work regardless of how long your column is. Could be 15, could be 100, could be 1,000. As long as there is a value in the column A, row I, it will keep checking and check the next one until you had the empty one. You had the empty one. Let me make this font big, a little bit bigger. Is this code clear? And you guys see the difference now between this and the for loop? So the for loop works better if you know your range exactly. I has to change between this value and that value, and it's not much dynamic. This one, if you don't know how long your loop is gonna run, it's all based on certain condition. As long as there is a value in column A, row I, it will keep going and check the next one, and the next one, until you have the empty one. Yes?
Is there any way in a for loop to specify, like to check the length, so it's actually know where to end?
You have to do it twice. You have to run a for loop first to find the maximum, and then to run it again. But it's a waste. You're already running through it.
I think this is because we can.
In this condition, if you have a dynamic one, yes, this is better. But if you have a fixed length set of data, you know exactly what's the range, you can use the for loop. The for loop is easier to work with because it's you don't need to declare I, you don't need to initialize I, and you don't need to do I plus 1. You don't need to increase it at the end of the pass. So this is the difference. That's why it's a little bit more elaborate. So the difference between the for loop and, let me go up here. So see how we did like for I equal 2 to 30? We didn't declare I before. We didn't initialize it. It's all included here. But with the while loop, you need to declare I defined as an integer. You need to put initial value if you have it, because when you start A and I, this has to have a value. And before the loop ends, that index, you need to increase it or decrease it, change it. So put it this way, the condition you change for here, make sure there's a logic within your loop that's gonna change it and at some time makes it false, so it exits the loop. And initially, this value has to be true initially, so it goes through it. Otherwise, if it starts with false, it's just gonna leave. So typically, this condition has to be initially true, and every time you run a pass, there should be a logic or something or condition that we're gonna make. There's a chance for this to become false next time, so it exits the loop at the desired time. We'll see it in action. So actually, let me save this as new document. So we already have a macro. Let's create a new button for that macro. And we create it called copy while. So we run it step by step and see how this works. So I'm going to put a breakpoint at I equal 2. I'm going to click the copy. Hold on. Copy while group. Oops. Hold on. Oh. Actually, I don't need this to check. To continue. Let me delete that. Okay. Copy while and press F8, step into. So activate sheet 2, that's the destination. We'll clear column A, and then we put the header back, and then go back to sheet 1. Now I equal 2. So see, initially before I say I equal 2, the initial value for I is 0. So if I don't specify equal 2, it will check if range I0 has value, and it's going to break there because that range doesn't exist. So I initialize I to 2. Now this is range I2, and the value is 728,000. So is it empty? No. So it will check if it's greater than 500,000. It is. It will copy it, go back, and if now I is 2, then it will be next time it's 3. Now I is 3. We'll go back to check. If range I3 doesn't have value, yes, it will keep doing it. Put a breakpoint here, and I will do continue. So I equal 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. So now I equal 15. I add 1. Now I equal 16. You notice A16 is empty, right? Right here. So now I go back and check. Is I16, is it empty? And the answer is yes. Then it exits the loop and leaves. So you can run this without even knowing or checking how long is your cell. I want you to write this and run it step by step so you understand how it works. If you have a question, let me know. Please try it on. And I want you to really to get hands-on with the code. I want you to run it, and it has to run. If you have a problem running the code, let me know. I'll work it with you.
You can come.
You just started. This is your forward. Copy that. Copy the whole function. From sub to end sub. Control C, Control V. Go below, Control V. Rename the function in the button the sub. This cannot be the same one. Button 2, but that's fine. So we said we're gonna have to now look at that. So we need to change this for block to the while block. To the do while. So on the
We
screen.
need to put like the gym.
Right.
So this
So
is the stuff you add
to
to make it
no,
clear,
this is yeah
right?
to clear the the target.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So starting from sheet 1,
Mm-hmm.
everything is the same. So you start from here.
Okay.
Look at it, type it.
You want to ask a question?
The same one that was the front. Just from sub click to end sub. Yeah. This is not.
Try to do step by step the value of y. Oh, because it's assigning a value. So the function will this is going to get that one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can do this.
Guys, just a quick tip when I do them side by side. If you click the Excel, click the window key, hold on the window key down with the Windows logo and the left column. This will align to the left, and then you can click this to the right, so you can have them side by side if you want.
How do you make it run like step by step?
Or right click here. Authenticate area below. So this is the first step. You put the notes over this one for that.
Oh, so you just consistently press it?
Yes, so every step.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Go to file, options, and press that key.
Did you put it? Yeah.
Enable movement.
But it is.
Save it, close and open it again. When open it usually asks you. Yeah, that's it. So when you save it, it asks you. Enablement. Try to just click this one. So, now. Oh. How you change the actual function? You can make the copy. Right. You can do step 2 with F8, like step by step, or.
I mean, that the if block is the same we had initially in the 4 example from last time.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't put it on.
I think so.
So what's that? Why is that wrong? What is it?
Do not.
Maybe I should have put din.
There you go.
Yeah.
Blue's good. From what I gather.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand anything. I'm like, this is not my book. And then I don't even know what it is.
Make a button. So we're gonna.
Did we make a button?
Developer.
Oh, we need to make a new button.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, developer.
Insert
So it's like option, customize ribbon, developer. Okay. Developer. Insert. Stop, right?
Yeah.
And then what?
Then if you go bring your mouse cursor down,
Yeah.
then you can create a box.
Oh,
like
gotcha.
Dragon.
There's a regular here. And what is this testing? I don't
What's your
even.
function name that is a button to click?
Yeah.
So you just go
Oh,
to
so you
select that
click
one.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're just like indicating which function
Function
you
you
want.
want. Oh, okay, gotcha.
You can change the name if you want to, but it shouldn't work. I think.
I don't even know what that means either. Let me recheck everything.
Any questions?
Is that the whole thing? Do I need all these?
Yeah, I think so. Trading F8 is seeing maybe if you hit F8, it might tell you at what point it's messing up.
F8?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it says. Expected insult. I don't even know what that means either. Okay.
Oh wait, did it just work? Is it expected and stuff? Go to sheet 2. If it worked, it would then all the information would go to sheet 2.
Oh, okay.
So go to sheet 2 and see
Oh,
what's
sorry.
in there. Oh, it worked.
Oh, it worked. Oh.
We didn't even know it worked.
I still don't know what. I have to understand how to do that.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
there's no way I can type this on my
I can
own.
copy him, but I
Yeah,
can't.
I can't do it on my own. I'll copy what he writes, but I don't know what it is.
Does it say
Yeah.
continue?
Continue.
Yeah, this is the,
Oh, you're supposed to remove that part.
no, you gotta go 4 and move 1.
Yeah, remove that part from here. See, it's not there
So
anymore.
these are the values matching.
Remove it from go and see the part what it's oh, you don't.
No, this is just to show.
Did you click on the right button?
This one.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see.
You know what? I think
Oh yeah, the name. You're supposed to change the name because you can have this name. Yeah. Yeah, so make a new button. Yeah.
You need to first go through them. Once you verify those 10, then you can apply it back. So once the condition plus.
Yeah, we had like really strange situation where if it just one, it's coming from
Private and so now everything we needed, right?
Okay.
And here's this.
Run it. Fine.
Run it, and get everything.
Okay.
Now I need. I just want to go after it.
Okay.
And I do keep writing.
Okay.
I'll keep writing it for 3 times. Sometimes it goes one and
it's not,
P-value,
it's
yeah.
not like it's not.
And the values get bold in sheet one.
Yes, because what you want, that's what you use.
Is it because they don't want to do this?
Yeah, for class. What did you do? You always eat like
Your question?
Does this look good? All right.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you understand how it works between the 4 and the
Oh,
1
that's
and stuff.
No, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what that is. But no, but it worked. But if I had to write this on my own, there's no way I would do. I don't even know what this is. What is this?
This is basically, okay, the full loop is when you know that you're only scanning 15 rows. When we go up to the previous function, scroll up. Here. So see here. Here you specify go from like 2 to 30.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know exactly what's your upper limit.
And so that's a loop.
It is a loop, they're both loops.
But this is
But
like
this is
a
loop.
whole. What did you say? A wild
While
loop.
loop. So the for loop is when you know the range exactly.
Yeah.
From you could be scanning through columns, you can scanning through rows, but you know exactly how many times this loop will be repeated.
Oh, so if you don't know where the bottom is, then you want to use this.
Correct. Then you do
Okay.
while, and you always check for a condition that will tell you continue or not.
Okay. If you don't know that.
If you don't know how long you're gonna repeat that task.
Can you give us a problem set that's like not homework, but is just maybe 10 of
Sure.
these?
Actually, first, yeah, I can send you some
Send out,
supplement.
like-
There's tons of resources.
Okay,
I
awesome.
don't even have to build anything
So just
myself.
look
I
at
can use
practice
some.
doing this.
Yeah. So first, check the links I sent. So this is the one I showed on the.
So
Yeah,
this,
go there. Go to the first document.
so the difference is that you need to say this on top,
Yes.
and then
For the for loop, you don't need to declare the counter, which is I in this case. You don't need to initialize it because you already specified the range. With the while loop, yeah, you have to define everything. Depends on the condition you're checking. Go back up one level. That's it. So on the week 11, see this line, let's say VBA tutorial, these two. Look for the for loop and while loop. Click that. Go to loops. This is the one I was showing. And do while loop. That explains, tells you what exactly what it does, and with some samples. And there's just one example online. There's tons of others.
Okay.
You can simply just Google while loop in VBA. You will see tons of examples. Okay. But this is the main difference. The for loop is you know exactly how many times you need to repeat that code. The while loop, when it depends on a certain condition. While that condition is true, keep doing. But you're going to make sure that there's some place in your code that condition at some point is going to become false, so it will exit the loop.
so that's why you only need to say 2. You don't need to say 2.
Because I don't know. Because every
yeah.
time I check the next one, I still have value,
Yeah,
do it, have value, do it,
okay.
until that cell becomes empty.
Okay.
And,
then it
and what
stops.
is changing from one loop to another is I'm checking the next row. So the counter of the row is increasing.
Okay.
I'm not checking the same cell over and over, otherwise it will never exit the loop.
Yeah, we'll stop there.
Yeah, for the portable now. Check because it has to go to 30.
Now, since you added this, it will once you hit it, also active. But if you have more while, then you don't have to.
So guys, you can test your code. Delete one level. Thanks, Vivian. Delete one row in your list and see if it's going to continue or not. So this is the source list. Initially, how many you'll get? 7 values. Let's say halfway through, like delete this one, and you see the while loop will not going to continue. Only it's going to copy these few, and it will not copy any of these down there. That's how you can test it, see if it's working. So because once the code hits an empty cell, it's gonna stop right there. Yes. And it's gonna exit, it's not gonna continue the rest.
Okay.
It's gonna consider that the list has any. Any question on this side? You guys be quiet? Like keep quiet or
Yeah.
Running more than
Oh, no, it reached 30,000. We're not checking for A and R. For this condition, it's always 60. Never ends.
it only ends at the
By the range.
so this is okay. So this is right. So always keep checking for A1. A1 always I don't have to add a
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Any questions?
You can You can change the
You
name.
can equal this one, basically to make that to make this be the one. Next one.
This is one.
So what's the range? What's the surface along A and I?
Click.
On A and this one. Not this and not this and not this plus one. They are
You just add this and then here. Oh, yeah. Just say range. I have one.
the next one is one after it.
So this is G.
Then those will get. Then how do you find switches to shift? Yeah. Then color will get. But you'll have to change the name of the file. Right. Maybe 1.4, 1.4.
Wow, so copy the whole thing and just leave it out. One second. You use your photo, I wanted it done.
So the wild look is called the do
You
wild.
want to just the whole.
Oh, it's wild. I don't- Is it wild or wild?
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh, I thought the whole time it was wild.
Actually, here. So A2. Right? Second is A. The color is not.
It's not full and it's small.
Yes, so. To talking about color. This is RGB, so it's just like.
By the way, the function for the color, some of you are playing with the color. You want to change the background instead of. So you can, let's say, remember when we did that every time the value matches, it's a greater than 500,000, we made the font bold. We can make that also change the background color of this to something else. So the property for that is interior dot color. So this is, you can put the combination of red, green, blue, and you can do that through this color equal RGB. That's a function. Red, green, blue, and you feed it the three numbers for red, green, and blue, and each one from 0 to 255. That RGB function returns a specific color. So RGB, let's say, what color do you want? Let's say silver gray. That will be very light. Let's put 192, comma 192 for green, and comma 192 for blue. So let's try this in here. We'll run it. Notice it changed the color to gray. This is the background color, and this is the command that does that. By the way, to know how this works, how to, like, remember last time we did record macro? If you want to see how you're going to control color, simple. You do go to developer, let me maximize this, record macro, call it macro color, and you simply just change the color of this cell, make it yellow, and stop recording. And let's see, where is it? Macro color, edit. This is color index. It's a bit more complicated, but the reason you have these options because you have different options for color. You can pattern, you can put solid, you can put a gradient. So this specifies that the pattern is solid, but the color itself, this is the property. Let me give you another tip here. You're going to see that in the recording. The keyword width. So the equivalent of this, I'm not going to test you to this, but so for you to understand what this means. So this is equivalent to this one. Let me give you a preview. So that code is equivalent to this. So if you're always working with the same object over and over and over, and you don't want it to repeat like this, let me scroll this up. If you don't want this selection that interior to repeat it in every single line, another cleaner way to represent your code, you use the keyword width. So with selection.interior, that means it's as if you put selection.interior before every single one of these. These two blocks are exactly equivalent. It's just like kind of cleaner to read. So this repetitive pattern, it doesn't take much of the screen because this is what you need to focus on. This section that's changing. And this pretty much not only in VB, this feature exists in every single programming language. So if you have a long repeating object instead of like copy paste every single one, you just say with selection.interior, this is equivalent to selection.interior.pattern, selection.interior.pattern color index, and so on. I don't expect you to use it, but this is at least you know how to read it. Yes.
Color number, like you were typing in that number, how would you know what the RB is?
You need to look it up. There is an indexes for that.
Oh, so
Just look up, let's say, color, VBA color 65535, what that is. Actually, there's another way to do that. I think, hold on, let me double check. If you do more color and you do custom, no, same thing's not gonna tell you that. Let me try paint. It's gonna give you the color number or not. No, even that's not gonna give you the color number. But this is pretty much how you mix the colors in Excel. Actually, let me show you something we're gonna work on next time, but show you what we did last semester. Here you go. Color selector. We're gonna build our own. So this is in Excel using just few controls, the button, and here under developer, when you do insert set of button, also you have a scroll bar. So this scroll bar, it changes between 0 to 255. As you change the color, it changes. So when you have all of them 0, make these slightly bigger. So this is black. So if I mix red and green, gives me yellow. If I mix blue and green, gives me cyan. give me then red and blue, magenta, and so on. And the code behind this one is actually not much, just set color. It's RGB with 3 values. Red is from cell A2, blue from cell A3, and the green from A4. So this is just the whole code behind it. Then the next part is the controls. You specify minimum, maximum range. We're gonna go through this next time, but I just want to show it to you. You can with these like 2 controls, you can build your own color mixer.